Thank you. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alistair. This is Orin. We're from the Plant-Based Universities core team. Orin is a regional coordinator and manages the website for Plant-Based Universities. As of about 3 weeks ago, I'm now campaign coordinator, so holding the overall campaign, as well as running social media and holding a few regions for the campaign. We're going to be talking to you today about the campaign, give you a little bit of background, how we operate, but hopefully spend most of the time talking about two things that we think we do pretty well, and that we hope that maybe some of you can learn some things from, take some things from them, and perhaps integrate these things into your own work, whatever that looks like. Or if you disagree and think this won't work for you, that's absolutely fine. The two things are, I'm going to talk about the nature of our demand, which is for 100% plant-based catering on campus, and then Orin's going to talk about the way we do governance, and we kind of structure the campaign, and the way we think about leadership. So, what is Plant-Based Universities? We are a grassroots student campaign operating internationally, part of the Animal Rising ecosystem of campaigns and projects, alongside, for instance, plant-based councils and vegan support the farmers. And we're active in about 80 universities across 9 countries, in the UK where we started, and then across Europe, and then there are a couple of campaigns in the US as well, but it's something slightly more of a distance because our real focus is European expansion this calendar year. Our focus is on systemic change. It's not an individual change. We're not asking students to go vegan. We don't even use the V word, vegan, in our campaigning, in our advocacy. It's absolutely change at the level of the system, the level of the institution, so 100% plant-based catering. And then beyond that, above that, thinking about social change and shifting the Overton window, and that's what I'm going to be talking about later on. How do we do it? So we've got a core team of about kind of 5 people, depending on how you count them, who are full-time, including me and Orin, obviously. And what happens if we don't have a Plant-Based Universities campaign, a PBU campaign at a university, what happens is a student gets in touch with us via our sign-up link on our website, and then we speak to them, give them an introduction to the campaign, deliver a 3-hour or so training to them and 2 others, because the minimum campaign size is 3 people, about the campaign, that really goes into detail in our kind of theory of change, our strategy, non-violence, and how our theory of non-violence fits into campaigning, as well as kind of more practical things, tactics, roles within the campaign, and how to, for instance, use social media and press to maximize our chances of success. And then we give them a table banner and some leaflets, and then it's over to them to do the campaigning. So really important to say, we're not the ones, the core team are not the ones doing the campaigning. It's the students, a number of students in here who are, PBU campaigners. They are the ones doing the work. It's the core team's job is not the work itself. It's to help facilitate, allow the university coordinator and the university campaigners to do the campaigning themselves. And what that campaigning looks like, at the moment, generally the first step is the first big kind of policy step is the students drafting, with our support, drafting a policy motion that they submit to the students' union of the university they're at, calling on 100% plant-based catering. That can look like different things. We kind of break up the way we get to 100% in different ways. So they submit this policy motion to their students' union. They campaign. They do outreach on campus. They speak to key stakeholders in the students' union, university catering services, university leadership, other societies, associations who are relevant to the campaign, to try and get this motion passed, and then we hopefully get the motion passed. And this kind of template, this pattern seems to be working. We've had wins at 11 universities since over the last kind of 18 months or so. As I said, 10 in the UK and then 1 at the University of Graz in Austria. So this is working. The one on the left is our win at Cambridge, which was our second win as a campaign, which was last year, and that's up there because they had a second win at the University of Cambridge, which we announced last month, which is huge. So there have been 2 PBU wins that the Plant-Based Cambridge team have done. And then on the right-hand side, our most recent win, our 11th win at Newcastle. So a huge credit and props to the students at these 2 universities. for writing, submitting, and then passing policy motions to their students' unions. This is real change in action. And again, that's not us doing it. That's not me doing it. It's not Orin doing it. It's the students who are doing this work. I'll tell them there was applause for that. And sometimes we lose. Sometimes we don't pass policy motions. So we see on the left here, BBC reporting on the motion that students at the University of Edinburgh submitted up in Scotland, which didn't pass. And you see on the right, Scottish Countryside Alliance releasing a press release explaining how they prevented the motion from passing, where they got wind of this motion, contacted, mobilised students at Edinburgh to vote against the motion, and now released a press release boasting about it. We see this, boom, exactly. But also, yay, this is part of our theory of change. If we're serious about affecting social change, we've got to understand that we're not going to win everything, certainly first time, and that we should expect backlash. We should expect people to disagree, impose, including quite strongly what we're doing. And because we're thinking about change at the level of society as well as the level of institution, this is also a success because this gets into the news and this debate, this discussion starts happening. Question?
I'm sure the City Council actually signed up to the plant-based treaty, if I'm not mistaken.
They did, yes. Yeah, Edinburgh, yeah, I think that's right, yeah. Important to say, so separate, plant-based treaty, separate organisation from plant-based universities with different targets, yeah. And then really importantly, incremental versus transformative change. This is the thing that we are doing. How do we understand what these things are? How do we understand the difference between the two? I think there are a few ways of doing it. One is thinking incremental change is about building on the system as it is, building on the status quo, and making these kind of gradual step-by-step changes to develop, improve the system. Transformative change is taking the system as it is and then changing it completely, so a kind of 100% change. Another way of thinking about it is over time, so incremental change being more gradual over time, whereas transformative change more sudden. And then another way, which I really like, a nice way of kind of phrasing it, is that incremental change is about achieving what's possible. Transformative change is about changing what's possible. And we in plant-based universities like to think of ourselves as being in the business of transformative change. Very important to say there are clearly incremental aspects to the transformative change that we're trying to achieve. It happens over a period of years, typically a kind of 4 or 5 year timeline to get to 100% plant-based. But because we have this aim of 100% plant-based catering, and we have this kind of these desires to affect change at the level of society, we like to think of ourselves as being in the business of transformative change. And that's for 3 reasons, I would say. One reason is that it's what we believe. We are being true to ourselves when we call for 100% plant-based catering. That's what we believe in for the environment, for animal liberation. That's the future we want to be in. And that has motivating, inspiring effects on people around us, I would say. Number 2 is that we think that the fastest way to get to 100% plant-based catering is to at least try asking for 100% plant-based catering. And we also find that when we make this kind of radical 100% ask, often universities come to us with options like meat-free Mondays, default oat milk on campus, without us even asking for them, just because we're kind of shifting, just within the institution, we're shifting the Overton window, the way that university catering staff and managers think about catering and the relationship between the food they're buying and selling and the climate and nature crises. And then the third reason is that we want to affect social change as well as institutional change. We're not trying to create vegans, but we're trying to shift public opinion towards being more in favor of supporting a 100% plant-based food system. And before we get people thinking that's a good idea, being in favor of a 100% plant-based food system, we have to get them thinking about it. And the way to get them thinking about it is for us to demand it, us to call for it. So yeah, there you go. I'm going to hand over to Orin now.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about how we're specifically structured. So yeah, like Alistair mentioned, we've got a core team of about 5 people, including myself, Alistair, who's our lovely coordinator, and also Nathan managing our press, which is a really important part of the campaign, and a couple other people across especially the rapidly expanding international portion of the campaign. But yeah, we are entirely or squarely focused on this really grassroots element. It's about making students feel like they're empowered and that they really can make, which they can, make this huge change to the world, really. So in order to do that, we make sure that our structure is set up to give them as much empowerment, as much freedom as possible to run their campaigns. So each university has a coordinator, and their job is basically to just make sure that stuff is going on, make sure things are coordinated, and everybody's kind of in together in the team. They usually also have different roles within the team. So there might be somebody doing coordinating the outreach on campus and things like that. But the really important connection between the core team and the individual campaigners is that the coordinators usually have a meeting with one of us, so one of the regional coordinators, and we give them kind of guidance on how we've run the campaign, a bit of structure, a bit of just support in general and coaching. And then also, there are specific, there's some things we campaigners have to do just to be part of the campaign. So like obviously ask for 100% and this kind of thing. Otherwise it's just, it wouldn't be plant-based university, it'd be something else, which is also cool, but not what we're doing specifically. So I'm going to give you a couple of dichotomies, so either-ors that aren't really dichotomies, which should explain a bit about, kind of what the campaign actually, the ethos of the campaign, we'll go with that. So yeah, centralization and decentralization. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with these terms, but basically it's about the distribution of decision-making within a campaign. So yeah, in plant-based or centralization is more, you've got either one person or like a relatively small group of people who are making all of the decisions for the group of people. Whilst decentralization is more, a free-for-all, anybody can kind of do their own thing. And both have massive benefits. Like I talked about earlier, we want campaigners to really feel like they can take ownership of this and like change the world. So the decentralized aspect of campaigners being able to just go and do things on university, like they don't have to check with myself or Alistair or anybody in order to go and do some outreach, bake some cookies, whatever they want to do. But at the same time, we've got this structure and we've got these elements of centralization so that we're still cohesive as a campaign. We still have, because it's very easy if you're completely decentralized to really not feel like you've got a good purpose and be kind of unclear about what we're doing as a campaign. So having these centralized aspects, having students come together as well, really allows us to have these group of people who feel like they're charging in one direction, about to take over the fortress or whatever it is. And that's been a really important and really empowering aspect of this campaign. Another kind of important part is this, really the way we go about leading students and also the way we kind of encourage students to lead within their universities. So we've got transformative and transactional leadership as examples here. That should be transformational, but anyway, transformational and transactional leadership. But essentially the difference is with transactional leadership, it's about, you've got like a task that you want to do, you want to get the specific thing done, and you give like, it might be the case that you've got rewards for students to do that, or encouraging them that way, more kind of, it sounds a bit corporate, but more mechanical kind of managing, whilst the transactional is more the case, or transformational is more encouraging students to develop in their own, or whoever, develop in their own capacities. So it's about creating more leaders. And the real kind of big benefit of this transformational style, which can often be forgotten, is really the long-term benefits that it gives. So if you encourage these students to go and develop themselves, so whether it's coming to one of our summer camps and learning how to campaign very well, or whether it's encouraging students, go read the specific book or that type of stuff. Not only does it benefit our campaign in the future, where these students are able to take the lessons they've learnt and help others and help themselves run the campaign, but also for our movement in general, it means that we've got all these really cool students who've learned how to do banner drops, they've learned how to organize themselves efficiently and correctly, and then they go out into the workplace or whatever they go and do, and then they start creating some really cool change. Like we had a campaigner, Mark, who had the PBU campaign at Bath, and he's just gone and given a presentation at like his office already. So it's just kind of PB was creaking into all the aspects of society and infecting everybody, which has been really good fun. So it's not about, both these cases, in both the centralization and also the leadership style, it's not about making sure that we pick one of these or one of these is better, because it really depends on your campaign and it depends on factors like how much time have you got, whether you need to, what type of campaign you're running, whether students really need that encouragement. But it's about making sure that, you're not kind of neglecting the more, I don't know, things that can seem less direct and less impactful, but are also very important micro decisions in the campaign. I think that was last slide. Okay, so in terms of plans for the future, so we've got a couple of exciting things. I think the biggest things that we've got are our summer camps, which are happening this August. So these are really fun events where students come together. Some who've run campaigns before, some who've never run a campaign or haven't even done, I don't know, went vegan like 2 weeks ago or whatever. But they come to the campaigns, they learn how to effectively run a campaign, a bit more on the stuff that I've talked about here, but much more. And they learn how to, and also they just come together and see that I'm not alone. There's this huge group of vegan students, or not even vegans sometimes, we've got lots of people who are involved in the campaign. But this group of people who I can join and I can really do something impactful with. And they just go away buzzing. I go away buzzing when I've been to them. And then we've also got, so we've got a couple of, basically our plan is to have at least kind of 15, so we're at about 11 moment, policy motions by the end of this academic year. We're looking at several votes coming up across the UK and I think a couple internationally as well. So keep your eye out on the news for some cool wins. And then also we'll be at a couple conferences in Europe. So the International Animal Rights Conference in Luxembourg and the Conference for Animal Rights in Europe in Poland. So if you're a conference junkie and you've been to this one and you're going to be to the other ones, feel free to come say hi. And also just expanding very much internationally. Cool. So I think that's the end of kind of planned stuff. If you want to get involved, there's a couple of bits on here. We've got our websites, which you can check us out on. If you're a student or if you know students, or also if you're an academic as well, sign up on our website. There's like a join page. And somebody will get in contact with you and get you started on the campaign. Otherwise, you're welcome to just follow us. Our link tree is up in the top right, or you can search it through that link there. And get to know all about, just keep informed. Otherwise, we would love a donation if you're in any means to do so. It's always wonderful, and we're completely donation-based. So if you can help keep us afloat, help keep me and Alistair off the streets, that would be much appreciated. Awesome. So I think we can open up to Q&A now. Thank you all for listening.
Cool. We haven't had any questions through the Q&A, so if anyone wants to ask anonymously, do that, but we'll go for hands. I just very quickly wanted to steal a question. So when motions get passed and you've got to win, generally what sort of reasons do you find people have passed it? Is it more environmentally conscious, or they're like, we think that a university should be forward thinking, or is it moral in any way? Have you picked up on those things? And then who had hands? And I'll go to the next person. Cool. Do you wanna?
Okay. In terms of reasons. Oh, microphone. I think it really depends. I think in general, what we talk about more is, like you said, the kind of the role of a university being this body of kind of insights in society in somewhere which really should be leading change. I think students tend to, relate with that quite a lot, because it feels a bit like our university is kind of taking the piss, and they should be, representing what we want. And also, the environmental messaging is quite strong. There's loads of students who are also interested in the more animal side of things, but that's not what really we push as a campaign. At least in my view, that's kind of the next step on top of this. Once we've got this kind of framework, and once like a plant-based food system, including at universities, but also throughout the kind of UK and internationally, goes abroad, that'll make it much easier. But I do some animal rights, more traditional animal rights stuff as well, so it's a bit of a mix.
Great. One from me. Have you done much outreach to groups at universities? Because obviously most universities have a group or society all around this. Have you tried just like mass emailing all of them, or have most of your connections just come through people reaching out to you directly, or has it been come through those cold leads?
Yeah, we tend not to do things like mass emailing too much. We tend to find that students, certainly in the UK, who might be vegan or who might be pretty environmentally focused and care about the environment, tend to know about us and then get in touch with us, and then they tell their mates at the universities and they get in touch with us, and then that's kind of how we mobilize and train and find our students. It is certainly the case that vegan societies, veg socs, animal rights societies, environmental societies, we tend to definitely draw lots of our campaigners from those kind of societies. And in some cases, actually, I say that PBU can be something of an existential threat to, for instance, a vegetarian society on campus, because we have this really strong purpose. We can give students this community and the training, but in particular this purpose where they're trying to affect change at their own institution, and they can be the ones driving and being responsible for that change. And that's really exciting. Orin touched on this earlier. In terms of the long term, the single thing about PBU that excites me and inspires me the most is the idea of going into these universities, identifying, training up young people, radicalizing people, and then seeing where they go after they graduate from university. And just thinking about the room upstairs, we had a stall there. There'll be people from PBU working at pretty much every one of these kind of vegan organizations, animal rights organizations, charities, NGOs, groups, who are doing that work in part at least because of plant-based universities, because they've had this exposure to this community and to this kind of sense of purpose. So that for me is a really powerful thing about PBU.
Do we have any?
Oh, you were so quick. As an older person who is not a college student or British, apart from organizing, like, say, the Bristol National Animal Rights Day event and Compassion Fair, you should all come, and having you guys, I think someone had spoken to Orin maybe about coming, and hi, Orin. Beyond that, what can non-university students do?
Sure. Yeah, there's always plant-based councils, which is the kind of local authority alternative to plant-based unis. So I'd very much recommend giving them a line. They're more than happy to have the help. In terms of with plant-based universities specifically, obviously if you know university students and you can reach out to those networks, that's amazing. In terms of kind of direct things with the campaign, I think there's not a huge amount unless you're academically involved in some way, because it does have to come from inside the institutions. Of course, there is donating as well if you're able to. Would you say that's?
I think crucially, telling students academics to check us out. That's really the key thing, I'd say.
Any?
Okay, thanks. Thanks, guys. It was really inspiring, really kind of interesting presentation. I'm interested in when students take those motions, what kind of response do they usually get from the student body? Is it do they usually pass quite easily? Is there a big backlash? Like what kind of percentage is it? How difficult is it, basically?
Yeah, I think we're running at a pass rate of plant-based motions through students' unions at about 40 to 50%. I think that's roughly what we're looking at. And we do tend to find that there's some opposition. The organisation and the strength of opposition varies quite a lot, depending on universities. Edinburgh was the almost famous example so far. We had the external party, Country Alliance, getting involved. The key reasons why we have this opposition, I'd say maybe there are two categories, and Orin, you feel free to jump in. One is kind of personal choice, though. The argument that if you're doing vegan advocacy, you hear a lot of, and the idea that what we're trying to do is taking away, your meat, your dairy, your fish, etc. And then separate from but related to that point is questions relating to food accessibility and inclusion. So, for instance, if students who are not themselves following 100% plant-based diets have, for instance, food allergies or food sensory issues or eating disorders, what a transition to 100% plant-based catering campus would mean for them, that can throw up some problems for us. And certainly not every university, but a couple of universities, there's been some organised opposition to us from people, for instance, like a disability society or the disability chair. So that's something that we've been thinking about and talking about quite a lot internally.
I think so, but I can't remember what it is. So yeah, I think that's
cool.
Thank you for a fantastic talk. I'm wondering why you're not pushing this as a kind of an intersectional kind of discourse. It's more like environmental. But clearly animal rights and health are also like arguments for campaigning for universities to go plant-based or vegan. And I've had some backlash from like an abolitionist vegan saying, oh, why not also talk about the animal rights and health? I know it's probably an easier win now with the climate emergency, but are there plans to make it more intersectional in terms of that in this campaign?
So it's a really good question. It's a conversation that we have internally. The idea is that by focusing pretty much entirely on climate, environmental, sustainability-focused messaging, we are holding the university to account on research they're producing, on environmental commitments environmental research they themselves are producing. And that's an extremely strong line in our view to be taking. Universities tend not to have declared animal ethics emergencies, but in many cases they declare climate emergencies. And if they declare a climate emergency and they're producing research out of their agricultural, environmental department, that's saying fundamentally, the truth that we all know, which is that farming and fishing, animal farming and fishing, fundamentally not compatible with a safe, sustainable future for all of us. If they're producing that research, declared a climate emergency, and they're still serving animal products on campus, that's a real hook for us to go in there and really go after and really try and affect change that way. And I think I don't have much experience of this myself. But I have heard that university campaigns, kind of student campaigns, which take a real animal rights focused approach to campaigning and trying to affect change, can have some kind of alienating, isolating impacts. But we say that the soul of plant-based universities is vegan. That's like a line I hear sometimes. And every member of the core team is being arrested, taking direct action specifically for the animals, like for animal liberation. So that's my answer. Anything to add?
Yeah, I guess just additionally, like obviously we talk about climate messaging, but there are scenarios in universities where students do talk a bit about the health or they talk a bit about the animals or whatever. So it's not like people are banned from talking about it or anything like that. It's just that, especially given that the climate emergency is so urgent, it makes it really, this 100% ask seem a lot more reasonable to people because it's, if we don't do this, then, it's going to be, it already is severe consequences. So I think it gives a lot of urgency to the campaign as well. But I do feel you, absolutely.
And then we've got our last question here, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Thanks, a great talk, great campaign. Thank you very much. You answered my first query, which was what can I do as a vegan academic? And you've invited me to sign up, so I'll do that. I was also wondering, what are your thoughts or strategies for securing the gains? So when your campaigners have graduated in years to come, how will you avoid this, losing these fantastic gains? And also, what will you do to the ones where you've lost for now? What strategies do you have to going back and trying again and eventually having a success and overturning Edinburgh, for example? How wonderful that would be.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd say second question, very straightforward. We just go again. We go back again as soon as we can. I think we find that once we don't pass the motion first time round, second time round we tend to pass it because students have that experience. They've got the confidence, they know, and they know like who the important contacts and people to speak to are. So that's pretty straightforward. Other one about students moving on, and then whether these policy motions that students' unions make these commitments to are actually turned into catering change, policy change. Is a tricky question, and implementation in general, implementing these wins is another thing that's we're thinking and talking about a lot as a core team at the moment. One thing we really want to avoid is putting too much pressure on students' unions to change, going ahead of the rest of the university and, for instance, third-party private catering outlets like Greg's or Costa Coffee on campus. Because there is this difference in all the SU outlets are 100% plant-based, universities still, serving like animal flesh, then there is this disjunct, and there's a risk that if students, the SU outlets, for whatever reason, are not very popular and start losing money, that could be really, really bad for the campaign. So we're thinking about how to do implementation in a way that is more holistic and more kind of more whole university approach. The details of that, not really, we're still talking about those details, I'd say. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. We're going to have to wrap it up there, so let's give them a round of applause.